Hello, this is Vernon Lee Jr., co-host of the 757 Roundtable Talk,
What, baby?
co-founder of the Hampton Roads Youth Foundation. When I tell you we've got some special guests tonight, I mean, one of these guys I had a chance to play against. Another one of these guys was my kicker back in the day. And the other one I didn't get a chance to play against, but had a chance to watch him come up. So Carl, man, I know we've been talking about getting this crew together for a minute, man. I'm really excited.
Yeah, this is a special night, man, just to have these guys, because, I mean, we've had a lot of other guests on, but these guys are special because they're with us. They're our class, they're our era, and we have a lot of respect, and we've seen them, from the early stages of their career all the way into the NFL, where when they made it, we all felt as though we all made it, and that gave us all a good feeling, man. So I'm glad to have all these guys on tonight, man. This is awesome.
You know, it's great to be here, man. Good to see some old faces and hear some old voices and I guess reminisce.
Yeah, for sure. That's what it's about.
Well, one of the important things we do, the way we kick this off, is for prosperity purposes and for a new audience that's following. We want everybody just to, spend maybe 2 to 3 minutes, give a little bit background, like where did you grow up? I mean, we know the area, but a little bit, middle school up to the high school journey, and then we'll kind of go from there to college and beyond college. But just let everybody know kind of, who you played for growing up, because, we want to make sure all that stuff's documented.
Mike Husted, you the oldest. You got to go first.
Yeah, I don't know, man. With elementary, with the Eaton Junior High. But I don't know. Sorry, I did get a text real quick, man. So I got CTE. So what am I trying to say here?
No, you're good. Before Hampton High, so you said you were at Wits and went to Eaton.
Yeah.
Now, did you play? When did you start kicking?
Yeah. So it's kind of funny. I was ninth grade. And it's kind of a funny story. So I'm at the old Timeout Arcade. At Hampton Coliseum.
What do you want, baby?
And these girls were cheerleading for the Northampton Bulldogs, like the rec team. And they come in, I think I was playing Tecmo Bowl, and they're like, hey, man, they need football players for, Northampton. I'm like, man, I always wanted to play. I think I could play wide out, play quarterback, and so I go out and, first practice, at the end of practice, Coach Gillette comes up and he goes, all right, who here can kick? I looked down the sideline, I'm like, I play soccer. Like, you're the kicker, So I go and I try to kick it, and I try toe jam it, like old school style, and I hit it, all right, and I try soccer style, and I slip because it had been raining. Like, let me try that again. So I hit soccer style again, and I crushed it. I look at the coach, say, hey, coach, which way do you want me to kick it? He goes, son, I don't care if you kick it with your – just get that thing to the uprights. And that's pretty much how I got started in kicking, man. It's kind of by luck, I thought I was gonna be like quarterback or wide out or safety, and figure out now I'm a kicker.
It's crazy. I don't think I knew that story. When we were at Hampton High, I knew you came off of the soccer field, but I didn't know that part of the story. TK, what was your journey like coming up through the ranks, little league?
I'm from Todd Mill out there, close to Langley Air Force Base. Went to Jefferson Davis in middle school. And then ended up going to Bethel High School, go Bruins, BHS rocks the best. We had someone to define it, I think, anyway. But anyway, so then, baseball was my sport. I mean, I love baseball to this day. My pops and people said, man, you should have played baseball, this and that, But what happened was I went to the University of Tennessee. And then once I went to the University of Tennessee, I was playing both sports my freshman year. And Johnny Majors pulled me in the office and told me, hey, we got Chuck Smith and Chris Mims coming in. You need to decide if you're going to play baseball or you're going to play football. And so that was my opportunity. The first game I went to was 102,000 people. Once I seen 102,000, I told baseball, you got to go. I was playing tight end. I played tight end probably for about 2 weeks. And then next day, they put my hand on the ground. And next thing I was rushing the passer. So, I had to go eat pizza, hot dogs, put on a little weight, because I came in, I was, 6'3" and a half, 215. And so I had to put on weight to play defensive end, and did have an opportunity then. Had a good career at UT, All-American defensive end, and end up being first round draft pick with the San Francisco 49ers and in the 1993 draft, and you know, had a short stint, you know, but at the end of the day, you know, got a Super Bowl ring. You know, I could tell everybody, you know, I could write a book on, you know, making bad choices, you know, when it's time to, you know, be serious. And, you know, especially some of these young boys just going into the league, man, just really, you know, have a focus and have a plan. And then, you know, end up getting married, you know, met my wife in college, been married, be 28 years in March, and got my son, you know, my daughter's 27, my son's 25. I'm, you know, happily married now. Like I said, I'm a national sales performance coach for Boston Scientific. And so that's kind of my story. I mean, I've been residing in Knoxville, you know, ever since I came back here when I was 27 years old. So that's kind of my story where I'm at right now.
And we definitely want to get deeper into some parts of that journey also and part of that story. You had something, Mike?
I was gonna say, yeah. So back, I don't know if you remember TK, but you know, I played Northampton Little League one year, and I think it was my last year Little League, and so played on the Cardinals. I can't remember what team you were on, but I was on Gerzak's team.
Oh yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Right?
I remember Brian Gerzak. Yeah.
And so I'm a lefty batter, and Todd's like a lefty sidewind pitcher, and I'm like, oh no, I'm gonna get beamed again, dude. Don't get hit, don't get it. I'm like, you know how the batters know. He was throwing like 105, like in little league, man. It was crazy.
Oh man, Slade.
Hey, 5. You on mute, baby. You on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah, there you go. Slade,
I mean,
take us to, you had a little bit different. You weren't part of the PD, so you know things are a little bit different there in terms of AAA, AA.
Oh, here we go with that
You
already.
and your boy we had on before. Y'all made some real noise, especially against my Crabbers. But what was that journey like? Little League, so up through Tab.
Well, I mean, I played for York County Little League. Played all our games over at Tab Intermediate. But I came up, grew up in York County, Carrot Sharper Road. Going into the coast, and everybody knows where it is. So grew up York County, Tab Elementary, Tab Intermediate, Tab High School, then off to UVA, and then 9 years with the Patriots, and then a year with the Panthers. So obviously that part of it was great, but being on this show with you guys is as thrilling or more thrilling, exciting than talking about my time in the NFL, because this is where we all grew up with each other, watching each other, competing against each other, following each other. And just, being a part of the 757. Everybody knows about the 757. I'm down in Atlanta. Everybody knows about it. I'm in Boston. People know about it. So it's a notorious part of the country now. When kids are getting recruited, colleges are coming and talking about the 757. So that's the first thing I wanted to say. And it was a great journey. Obviously growing up, playing with Kirby, he pushed me, I pushed him. Obviously had TK, a couple miles down the street. So it was a great competition. It was great competitive atmosphere all the time. I remember playing against TK in Little League. And so they had to ID TK. They wouldn't let him back till they ID'd him. They thought he was like 15 when he was like 8 or 9. TK was coming over to York County and breaking windows and hitting home runs out the ballpark. When TK got up the bat, we had to move the cars back because he was hitting everything out the park. Him and Kent Cruz going to have those classic pitching battles. But it was awesome. It was fun. Obviously playing with TK and Kirby, that is, since 8 years old, all the way up until the time we got drafted, was something that I always tell people. Out of all the athletes I've ever played with, and I got to give him some props, man. He's the most athletic guy I've ever been around, including all the guys in the NFL and in college. Because I mean, he could do all three sports pretty damn good. Most of us, I was decent in basketball, decent football player, but I mean, basketball, football, and baseball. So to watch him grow up with him and compete with him, man, it pushed me. And watching TK down the street, get off, man. We all kind of had that unwritten rule of competitive spirit, but we all were rooting for each other. Yeah.
It's awesome.
And I want to say one thing. I was 5-0 against AAA teams. I never lost. Boy,
No, you
beat Lafayette twice, beat Denver twice, and beat the Crabs.
The record straight.
Matter of fact, the only close game I had was the Crabbers. We blew everybody else out. And TK played with a bum ankle. We still won.
guys should have been AAA the whole time, man. You guys just flew through AA.
Y'all should have been up. Y'all should have came on up.
Y'all still talking. I love it.
I was already in my first year at UVA when we played you guys finally, so I wasn't there.
That was one of the most exciting games, though. Every level, that was like the most one of the exciting games I've ever been in. When I talk about the top 3 or 4 greatest games I've ever been a part of, that's in the top 3 or 4. The rest of my life, no doubt.
There's so much hype around that game.
Yep.
You know what? we've all had great experiences in the PD and the 757 area playing football. And at that time, we were at our highest. We were at our highest in terms of just where we were. You know, we were kind of arrogant. We were in our own little bubble. You know, we didn't really care about what's going on in Florida, Texas, California. You know, I'm going to just be honest. In that bubble, we thought we were the only ones playing football in that area, right?
Yeah.
But did you guys take that mindset throughout your journey in football? Like, Chris, when you were, you know, the Niners, man, I mean, you had some great players, Tip and all those guys. And Todd, you played, man, with Prime and all those guys. And Houston, you played with great NFL Hall of Famers. Did that actually follow you throughout your career in terms of that pride of being from the Hampton Roads area?
And I think it instilled just natural confidence, right? I mean, you know, we felt like we played at the toppest level of competition at the high school. And so you just kind of knew. I mean, you know, I can't tell you how many places I go and I'm like, oh, you know, 757, you know, like Peninsula District or whatever. And you're like, oh, what's that about? And I'm naming off like all of us. And we're like Allen Iverson, Michael Vick, you know, Lawrence Taylor, you know, I mean, on credit, you know, Tyrod Taylor. I mean, I'm naming off these names and people are like, holy shit, all those people were like in your era. Like, yeah, they're like, God damn, man, there's a lot of athletes coming out of there.
Yeah.
You know, and so, you know, it was more pride and really more about, you know, representing where we came from and let them know who we're all about. And you know, but a lot of people already knew about the 757 when I was in the league and you know, like Hampton Crabbers, you know, and all those things. And it's just, it's really special to be able to grow up in that area and, you know, be high level competition. I always joke, I'm like, hey man, if I would have gone to any other district, any other school, I probably would have been starting quarterback or something like that. But just to, you know, the strength of athletes that the area put out is just so impressive. And I'd put it up, you know, against any area in the country.
Mm-hmm. Todd, what do you think about going to Tennessee, man? You played with, man, some heck of a player, Dale Carter, Carl Pickens, Hawk.
Ricky Hop.
Man,
Ricky
you
Hop.
played with guys, man.
Yeah.
I mean, tell me, how did you take that when you went in and going against all that competition when you had, you know, all the fellas there that were playing?
You know, I think it really started at Gosling Hope Park, right? I mean, if you think about it, you know, you got Armstrong, you know, you got Carey, you know, you got
Aberdeen,
Fox Hill, Aberdeen. I mean, it started there. You know, I remember we used to eat the Rice Krispie treats at halftime. You know, you drink the Coolies. Yeah, I think it started there because when you started Gosling Hope Park, I mean, that's when the click-clack started. Then, you know, we didn't really have middle school football, so you would always go up, you know, then you have juniors. And so the competition never stopped. And then when you got to the high school level, you know, everybody remember Darling Stadium, the old Darling Stadium, man, where you know, one side was, you know, you can look over the wall and, you know, you hear the other team in the locker room. And I don't care if you play Warwick, I don't care if you play Kickatam, you know, even Phoebus, right? I mean, you know, they would give you a good game. And then you go to Newport News. You know, what was interesting about those guys, I mean, they really had probably the better athletes than we did. You know, they just were more disciplined as I think, you know, we were in Hampton. And, you know, I think it really starts too, you know, if you think about all five of us right here, man, we had fathers in our lives, right? You know, we had dads in our lives really to really keep us disciplined. And what I learned a lot, you know, coming from the PD and the district and Little League, and I think I learned a lot of discipline, you know, just coming from, you know, I'm gonna say we was in the 804 at the time. People didn't know that, but 757. You know, we created 804, and now it's a 757. But you know, I think that discipline took on, you know, when we went to college. If you think about all the players, you know, I was talking to you earlier, Carl, about how many different players come, not just from the PD, but just across the 757, across the water. I mean, I remember at one point, state championships weren't won over there. They were all won, you know, in the PD. I mean, there was no such thing as you're not winning the championship. You got to come through the PD. And I think a lot of it was discipline. You know, as you talk about Bone, you know, once I went to the pros, you know, I took the discipline was still there. But, you know, when you think about the caliber of players, you know, I was around with the 49ers. I mean, my second year, I mean, we had, Deion Sanders, we had Charles Mann, we had Ricky Jackson. I mean, we had Ken Norton Jr., Deion Sanders. I mean, we had all these guys. I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, you talking about that was the year where I was just in awe because this was my second year and I'm around like Hall of Famers, like literally. They all came to our team to win the Super Bowl. And I think we all took in that discipline, I mean, life after football too. I mean, you look at CJ, what you're doing, NFLPA, you know, me and you talked the other day, Vernon, you know, as far as what you're doing in DC with your business and, you know, Slade and you know, I mean, you guys Husted, I mean, it's that discipline. I think that's what, and it all started at, you know, Little League, like in Yorktown, y'all was over there getting it down with, you know, playing Grafton and, all them teams like that. But it really started in Gosling Hope Park. To be honest, it started in Gosling Hope Park for me.
Slade,
What up?
talk to me, man. Like, did you take what the competition level that was built inside of you, did you take that throughout your journey at UVA and the league? Like, did that push you? Because when you got to New England, that was a very, very talented team. Does that like push you out there to stay competitive? What was that built inside of you?
Yeah, I mean, even going back to playing Grafton youth football, I was always on really good teams. I don't recall losing, and I don't know, the 7-8 years I played in Grafton youth, I don't think I might have lost maybe 1 or 2 games. Then I get to middle school, and I didn't lose a game in 7th and 8th grade. And obviously in high school, we lost 3 games in 4 years. So losing just wasn't in my makeup at all. I didn't know what losing was like. So yeah, it all started back for me, playing, a tab intermediate in youth football leagues, and then having to play the Fort Eustaces of the world, and Deer Park, and playing all those teams sometimes like the scrimmages. But yeah, that's what all started. So to all those other guys' points, that's where it started. And that's what all the carryover was, man. All of us have been around winning programs, like TK said, discipline, structure. So I think once we got to college and the next levels, it wasn't anything foreign to us.
And taking that sort of that theme around some of the success. I mean, everybody knows, we've talked about the journey that you had in terms of being able to make it to the pros. But we all know that that path is not and was not an easy one. And for a lot of the youth that follow us, that we interact with, particularly at the collegiate level, could each of you give us, you might have a dozen of them, but just give us an example of some challenging situations that you had to overcome while obviously for Chris and Mike at UVA and TK at Tennessee, but that journey, that's a hard journey to compete at that level. But whether it was on the field or off the field, can you give us an example of how you had to persevere and work through a situation? Because a lot of these kids need to be able to hear that as well, in terms of your journey.
Yeah, I think persistence pays off, hard work. I mean, like TK said, so much discipline playing for the Hampton Crabbers. I mean, it's just, now you can't do bull in the ring anymore, but back then, I had to go get bull in the ring, and I'm like, I had shoulder pads with flap it, single bar, but it's just, I think the discipline definitely, I think anything in life, just be disciplined, work hard, and I tell guys now, all the kickers I train, I'm like, hey man, I kind of joke and say, hey, to make it, 25% is you've got to have the skill. Another 25% is you got to execute when the opportunity presents itself. And for me as a kicker, the other 50% was just luck, being in the right place at the right time. But I was given an opportunity and I executed. Being a kicker, you got to be like a sniper, and you have limited opportunities. But I think the discipline that I learned, I can't stress enough to these young kids, just have a good work ethic, in the classroom, on the field, in the weight room, be a leader, or be a great teammate, and be humble, and I was fortunate to play, 3 years under Tony Dungy in Tampa Bay. And one thing I always remember, he used to say, act like you've been there before, and that's something I say to my guys now. And, back when Stephen Curry was doing all the showboating, I was like, act like you've been there. And I'm like, and he has been there, but he was still kind of showboating, but it doesn't always work out the way you plan, but if you have energy and you work hard and you really have persistence and perseverance, then maybe if it doesn't work out to make it in the league, then take that energy and channel it somewhere else where you can be successful.
Yeah, I think it goes back to kind of what Mike, you got to develop a craft. And one of the things, once I became a defensive end, Slade could talk about this too, is pass rush. That was one thing I developed, was the pass rush. And what really helped me, me and T-Bone were talking about this earlier, is, running track in high school, just having that discipline, being able to come off the football and be able to, get off that rock. And I took that, when I went to college at University of Tennessee, is just learn how to be a pass rusher, learn how to use my hands, learn how to come off that football and, get sacks. And, if you look at Mike Husted as a kicker, Slade was an awesome pass rusher as well. And I think a lot of these kids, they forget to, develop their craft. And what's amazing, guys, we didn't have all these football camps when we were coming up. There was no such thing as a football camp.
Yeah.
These guys get football camps. They get NFL players to train them. Man, we didn't have that. We played sandlot football, right? Turkey bowl. I mean, we played that kind of stuff. And so we had to develop the craft. And I think the biggest thing is the education, right? And a lot of that came, from my parents, just like y'all's parents. Is my mom was a teacher, my dad, he worked in the shipyard, as a supervisor, but, my mom was a teacher. So for me, I had to get my education. And I think that's where the focus is. A lot of these kids right now, I mean, you guys see it, man. I've been on recruiting trips where my son was getting recruited. You don't see fathers no more. You don't see them anymore. I mean, they're not even around. And for that, man, it's really tough for, for a young male to, to understand what discipline takes, to develop your craft and be able to have that man talk and be able to talk about things that's challenging. I mean, if you think about it, when you go to college, everybody was good. Everybody's phenomenal. Everybody was all American. Everybody was all state. But I think once you develop your craft, like, as in the pass rush, I was one of the, developed to be one of the best pass rushers. And that was my goal. And, a lot of it had to do with, just being disciplined and like in the classroom and just being disciplined on the field. And once you do that, I mean, you think about all the great players from the 757, 804 era. I mean, they developed the craft and what they did. And that's where they excelled in that. And that's kind of what I looked at, just developing the craft in the position that you play and carry that over to the classroom.
Slade.
I think one of the biggest things that hurdles I had to overcome at an early stage of my career was I don't think it was so much passing the SAT, to be honest with you. I mean, I was like a test away from becoming a Prop 48, and I remember going through that. That was probably one of the most adverse situations and things I had to overcome in the early part of my life, really, because I took the test a few times. I wasn't a qualifier, and I remember playing in the state basketball tournament at UVA in March. And I remember Tom O'Brien and Welsh was like, listen, we're going to hold you a spot at UVA. You can sign a letter of intent, but you're going to have to go to Fort Union if you don't pass this test. And I'd already taken it a few times. Said, but we'll hold you a spot. And we'll, but you got to go to FUMA for a year. And I knew I'd already made the verbal and all that, but I wasn't a qualifier. And so I remember taking that last test in March, and we had played a game on Friday night, and Saturday morning we took the test. And I took the test, and I obviously ended up passing it, but just going through all that stress of not being able to, knowing if I was going to be a qualifier and going through that whole entire deal that was probably the biggest adversity I faced earlier in my life in high school. And I remember going to like some basketball games, and it was almost like going to like Cameron Indoor Stadium to some of the crazies. I mean, they would, fans would, York High School, some of my rivals, because I'll never forget. I mean, they would mimic me, and I go to the free throw line, and I couldn't shoot free throws as it was. And so to have someone on, and just to have the fan, I mean, literally like, yelling SAT. Like, I mean, so it was public knowledge. I mean, it's funny now, but back then, man, it was, it was tough, and high school kids, like teenagers they would, joke on you, take shots. But that was like the biggest, I remember going through that and like coming down to like one more test. If I didn't pass that to be a prop, being a prop would have been into the world. But that was just at a time in my life early on in high school, especially at the end, I had to deal with the tutoring, the testing, and passing, and going through the stress of having to not be able to qualify right away. Then after that, I was able to obviously go to UVA, and everything kind of just fell in place. But that was probably the most adverse situations that I faced early on in my young adult years.
And I think that's a great point, Chris, because a lot of times I talk to people and they think, oh, I'm a great athlete, I'm gonna go wherever I can, just play it, whatever. And a lot of times it's not as easy as you think. And I tell a lot of the kickers I train, like, hey, look, you got to have good test scores, you got to have good grades, because if that scholarship's not there, well, it basically can, allows you to get into a better university, right?
Yep.
Like, if I didn't have football, would I have gotten UVA? I don't know. I would have been on the bubble, right? But football helped me get in, and I got in. And now, we're around smart people, and that helped us out a lot, and so, don't take your grades lightly, and if you're going to work hard in the weight room, work hard in the field, man, you got to work hard in the classroom, because, maybe you won't go D1, but maybe you can go get into an Ivy League school, and D3 programs. There's some great, amazing universities like Carnegie Mellon. They can't offer scholarships, but if you do well on your boards and have good grades, and they can give you those financial packages that can end up being like a scholarship. So, I mean, that's a great point, Chris. I can't stress enough the importance of, don't think your athletic talents are going to carry the whole way. You got to, take that discipline that you have on the field and put it in the classroom.
Yeah, I want to put an emphasis on that, man. I think, if any young person's listening to this, man, start your sophomore year, go ahead and start taking those ACT and
Absolutely.
PSAT
1 second.
practice classes, because what it does, it prepares you. So when it's time to take it, man, you're not scrambling trying to be eligible.
Yeah, that's good stuff. Well, guys, take us a little bit on your recruiting journey. I know everybody knows where you actually attended college, but I know there was a journey getting recruited and finally committing and all of that. Take us on a little journey of your recruiting experience and how you ended up at UVA, Tennessee, and in UVA.
Mine's gonna be really short.
That's fine.
Real quick, but kickers didn't really get recruited that much back then, and I thought the whole time I was had a full ride to Appalachian State, but it was kind of weird. I mean, I was getting JMU after me. Virginia Tech wanted me to punt, Women Mary, and they just kind of dropped off. And I think Coach Smith probably had something to do. I think he was kind of funneling me there, and I'm thankful. But he also at first said, "Hey, you can have a full ride to Appalachian State." I'm like, "All right, good." Bam, bam, bam. And then all of a sudden they gave it to someone else last minute, and I'm going, "What am I going to do now? Right? Where am I going to go?" And so, fortunately, Coach Smith, Tom O'Brien had talked to me a couple of times, and it really wasn't until April or May that, they came back and said, "Hey, we have a spot for you." So I was kind of scrambling a little bit, and so I really didn't have the 5 visits and all those kind of things, but things like that happen. And so I kind of wish I would have gone on a couple of recruiting trips, but, again, it's how things fall into place. And I think there's a reason why things happen, and, many highs and lows in the journey, but you got to learn from them and get better.
So, for me, I mean, I had shoe boxes of offers. I mean,
Yeah, like 20 visits.
Yeah, I mean, like crazy. Like the year after I, ran the state in the hurdles, and next thing you know, it's like I got all these, letters from everywhere. I mean, I'm talking about I had a bedroom full of letters, and I went visit North Carolina, Clemson, UVA, Virginia Tech. I mean, I really, Clemson. I kind of just wanted to stay close. But what was interesting is that, I wanted to play baseball too, and so I just, I also wanted to find out, how soon could I play right away. And, when I had an opportunity to take a visit to the University of Tennessee, and, they had 2 seniors in front of me, Marion Hobby and Tracy Hayworth. And, I was a true freshman. They would tell me, hey, you got an opportunity to come in. You can play as a freshman. And then also you can play baseball. And I went to the first game I went to was Tennessee versus Alabama. Once again, man, it was 103,000 people. I saw my wife. She was my Vol hostess, a little dime piece. I was like, man, wait a minute. I saw I'm coming to Tennessee. Next thing you know, man, people was like, the newspaper was like Todd Kelly from about the high school going to Tennessee. Had a lot to do. I fought my dime. I fought my wife now, and I fell in love with the Tennessee orange and, just the fans and the tradition and stuff like that, man. So that's kind of how I ended up in Tennessee.
Nah, that's good stuff. One of the things that is interesting about you, Husted, is that, as I travel and move around, and everybody knows that, we're all from the 757, I make sure I tell people your story, because I think your story gets lost a lot in the discussions. Because, everybody is really into the wide receivers, the quarterbacks, the linebackers, but, people don't know you actually, you helped me. You went to UVA, right? But that wasn't a simple journey for you. Like, you went to UVA and fought your way onto the football team and became one of the greatest kickers in the history of UVA. And then you went and was an undrafted kicker for Tampa Bay that was taken over, and you correct me, for Eddie Murray. I think Eddie Murray.
Yeah.
I forget, I think.
Yeah, it was Eddie Murray, but they drafted a guy too, the last pick, Mr. Irrelevant, and there was 4 of us in training camp my rookie year.
Yeah, see? Yeah. Yeah.
And I was at the bottom of the barrel, like our first day after field goal. Jerry Angelo, who's a player personnel director, comes up to me and introduces himself. Hey, Michael, Jerry Angelo, player personnel director. Hey, you're at the bottom of the barrel, man. You can't, if you don't do well, you're not going to be around here long. I'm like, nice to meet you too. And it was just, that was probably one of the biggest things. It's like, no one ever expected me, and I remember, like, after my rookie year, I went home and, watching, a game with my mom, because of course we were 5-11, didn't make the playoffs my rookie year, but my mom even told me, because, I didn't even think you were going to make it. And I was like, I know, Mom, I was the only one who did, and that's just that passion, that drive you got to have. And but everything, no one believes you can do it. But if you believe and you got to make some things work for you. You got to have a little bit of luck, but yeah, it's one of those things I tell guys, like, I wasn't prayed All-American. I wasn't, scholarship. I wasn't drafted, but it doesn't mean you can't make it. And there are a lot of great stories about guys who, at all positions, that made it, that weren't really heavily touted or drafted. I mean, like, Tom Brady was a 6th round pick, and so, but yeah, I appreciate you saying that. It's just, but I enjoy competition, and I think we learn a lot more from our failures and our successes. So it's okay to fail as long as you learn from them.
Yeah, I remember the PD when you was at Darlin Stadium, everybody else kicking 10 and 15-yard field goals. Mike Smith would call you in for a 35, 45-yarder. Good.
You said got us out of a couple of games.
rocking them red Converse.
Yeah.
And then I just told the kickoff coverage team, just stand on the sideline. This thing's going through the uprights.
I love it.
So how many tackles do you have in the NFL?
I don't know. I had 14 one year alone.
Wow.
That's all right.
I got some footage, man. I'll send that to you. I laid out some people. It's kind of fun, but it was, I took pride in taking tackles, and that's, as a kicker, I think that's how you earn respect, and I made some tackles at UVA one time. We were playing Duke, and I laid some guy on the sideline. I think I cracked his ribs, and I had some of the guys in the basketball team, like Corey Anderson and all that, and they come in and and I've got, turf burn, because it was actual turf back then, right? And I walk in, I'm in class with those guys, and basketball players are going, I told you that was Husted, that hit him, look, he's all sore and all that kind of stuff. And so, whereas a kicker, it's hard to get respect, but I felt that was one way you can kind of get respect is, just get your nose in there and get in the mix and hit somebody and deplete them.
Yeah, that's
I think there's a video.
Hey, Slade, help us out, man. You got to pull up the tail end of the stories, man.
Sorry about that, man. I was doing some stuff with my kids. Sorry about that.
It's okay. It's okay.
Trying to get them squared away.
Totally understand. We want to hear about your recruiting journey, man. How did you get to UVA? I tell you what, and Vernon can attest to this. Our last session with Gogo, Dwight, and Terry Curb, man, he gave us an amazing story of his recruiting process.
Who, Kirby?
Yeah, he got planes and all this stuff.
Gatorade All-American player of the year.
Yeah, helicopters and everything, picking them up from this back of the gym. Tell us about your process of getting recruited.
Well, Kirby, we don't believe half the stuff Kirby was telling you is a lie. I was there for all of it.
Yeah, I believe on that one.
No, it was exciting. It was eventful. I mean, I want to give obviously a shout out to Tom O'Brien, who recruited all of us, including Gogo and TK and Dwight, Psycho. I mean, all of us. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is it started in 9th grade for me. I got a chance to play varsity because we had a guy named Scott Rice, who was a pretty good player, ended up going to Virginia Tech.
Scott Rice started at Bethel, but keep going.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, we recruited him away. Yeah. And so we took a page out of Mike Smith's book. So
come on. Hey, look, guys just wanted to come to the crab.
I know. Y'all got guys with 5 mil.
We scrimmage against Hampton University all the time, too, or something like that.
So that's where it started, because, people recruiting Scott Rice. And so luckily, I just kind of Kirby and I just jumped on his bandwagon. So they were recruiting him. And then so that's how Virginia Tech and Virginia started off early recruiting us. And then that's what NC State's, and that's what it all kind of started for us, for me. And then it was exciting. And then obviously as things trickle on and everything happened on, it got nuts in terms of, other coaches coming in and taking you on your recruiting trips. And I didn't take all 5 of my visits. Actually, I went on 3. I didn't take 5 because I knew I was going to UVA anyway after my freshman year. But I wanted to make sure that was exactly the spot I wanted to go to. But it was nuts. And being with Kirby and being a part of that process with him, I'm sure he embellished a little bit because that's Kirby, but a lot of it was true. Chris Flower, Scholastic Sports America, ESPN. Obviously everybody on National Signing Day committed. Kirby did his like a few days later so he could have the whole show. And then, really it was all the national reporters. It was the first big time recruit in Virginia history, national recruit, Gatorade. So it was pretty wild being in that journey with him. But yet still, I had my own deal going. And yes, we did take a private jet down to Alabama. That is true. At that time, Bill Curry Sr. was the coach there. So they did send a plane for us. That was my first time flying on a private jet after one of my basketball games. So that is true. They helicoptered us from Tab High School to Newport News, and we took the private jet from Newport News into Tuscaloosa. Yeah, so it was pretty wild. Yeah, it was. But I'm a high school coach now in Atlanta, and the whole recruiting stage is completely different now in terms of social media with Twitter. And TK Jr. obviously went through it, but it's even crazier now because now everybody's Instagram and the rivals, the 5 stars, the 4 stars. It has become bananas. And back when we played, TK and Mike and Lee, Carl, it was just like no one talked about offers. I mean, they didn't even use that word. It was like I got a scholarship.
Right.
And nobody kept track of it. Nobody posted it. Right. It was just like and nobody even really said it. You just kind of knew that the school offered you a scholarship. They didn't even use that word offer back then. Now they throw it around like it's like everybody. I mean, it's just like no big deal.
Eighth grade.
Yeah, it's like, it's nuts, man. But I tell the kids even now, I always tell them, I said, recruiting has changed from a social media standpoint, but the process is the same. Keep your nose clean. Take all your phone calls. Don't blow anybody off. Football world is a small world. Because that same D3 school coach that you blew off or small school you don't want to go to, that same guy could be coaching in the NFL one day. And before they draft you, all of a sudden, I remember that guy blew me off 7-8 years ago. He's a bad character kid. We don't want to deal with him. So I tell my kids consistently, treat everybody the same. If there's a school you don't want to go to, pick up the phone, call them and say, thanks for your time and efforts, but I'm going to, Carolina or Duke or wherever the heck you want to go to school. But it was wild and crazy for me, man. I enjoyed it. Keeping tabs on TK and keep James Wilson and, all those guys that played my position. We all kind of wish we could have been together, but we all ended up where we were supposed to be. Yep. And my big thing for recruiting, I saw Savage go to UVA. So I was like, man, if Ray can go to UVA, then I can go to UVA because he had Oklahoma. He had all the big-time schools wanting him. So he was kind of like my big brother. I would go over to Ward as a 9th grader and watch him play and be like, damn, I want to play with Savage one day. So when he committed to UVA, I was like, I want to keep it at the crib, stay close to home. If he can go play there, then I can go play there.
Yeah.
Savage has really inspired me for the recruiting process.
And then recruiting nowadays is challenging with social media. And like you got to watch your step every bit of the way. I mean, you don't want to be tagged in a photo, like, even with some buddies and someone's doing something stupid and not have your faces in that photo. And, these colleges have departments where they kind of go in and they search all your social media profiles. So, I'm kind of thankful that, they didn't have social media back then, but I'm just kidding. But it's challenging. These kids, talking about being disciplined and doing the right thing and staying on the right path. I mean, you hear stories all the time about, kids who lose their scholarship offers because they do something stupid that gets posted on social media. And these schools are like, sorry, we don't want that kind of person here.
How do you, for all you guys, with again, all the journeys and the challenges along the way, both high school, collegiately, professionally, you share some things. But, when we start to talk about that ultimate transition, NFL fans are rapid and talk about players, like, when is it time to move on and to start to transition? Could you guys each share what was that like getting to that point for you guys to transition beyond professional football?
Yeah, I mean, I'm the old man, I'll go, but it's more challenging than people think. And I don't care how long you played and who you are and how successful you were, like there's a transition period. And just because, John Elway, walked away after winning Super Bowl and MVP, but I'm pretty sure there's some days after he was done that, just you kind of wonder what you're going to do. What am I doing next? And that's where, ideally having an education is something you can do when you retire from the game. But, like I said, you just got to take that energy that you used to get to the league and find something that you have a passion for again and apply to that. But I don't, like I said, it's definitely kind of, you definitely start wondering what you're going to do, and you wake up, even in the off season, like the first couple of weeks when the season ends, you don't have structure, like a lot of us, we've been used to structure our whole life, and people telling us where to be, what time, what to do. And then when you don't have that anymore, you're kind of going, what am I going to do now? Right. And so it is a challenge, but, I think if you, really focus and you take the discipline that we had and the passion and the hard work, you can make that transition a lot easier than you think, but it is challenging.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you guys. NFL stands not for long. And you got guys who play, 13, 14 years, but what happens is when it's over, it's like, it's over, right? And so then after football that you, hold on one second, guys. But so after you play football, what happens is you got this real world and then you're not used to it. So for me, I was a first round draft pick. I thought I literally going to play 15 years. I did. I thought I was. You know what? I played 4 years, got vested, but then it was the real world. And so you got different people basically saying, hey, what happened to your career? Why aren't you still playing football? What you going to do now? And one thing it goes back to is my mom was a teacher. And so with my mom being a teacher, she told me, she said, you know what, you're going to finish your degree, right? And so I went on ahead and finished my degree, got my degree, kind of got on track. I got into sales. And, once I started getting into sales, I started networking with all the different people. Some of my reps, that do like pharmaceutical sales and stuff like that. And I was like, you know what, I think I'm going to start getting into like surgical device sales. And from there, it kind of took its journey. But that transition from the time it's over to finding what you want to do next is tough. I mean, it's challenging. So, yeah, man, it's and then, then the whole transition to being married too, right? You start to develop a family. So when I first went into the league, I had my daughter. And so I had my daughter and then I had my son. And so really going into after football, I had a full-fledged family. And so for me, I had to make that adjustment. I was like, you know what? I can't go out here and spend the money like I used to playing in pro football. I can't hang out with the boys like I used to playing, when I was playing pro football. I had a family, and so my family needed me. And so that was really that tough transition, which at the time, you get depression sets in. I mean, people, it's real. It's really real. And you can find guys now, they're going through that, and it's so real, but it's how you overcome it. And, I think back to, the competition, through the PD and, going through, Hampton and, Bethel and UT and those things like that. It taught me how to persevere. And so, that's, but challenging. Oh, absolutely. Very challenging to make that transition.
Yeah, I agree. When I retired in 2003, I moved right to Atlanta from Boston. And the first year I retired, I didn't do anything. I just kicked it on Linux, basically for the entire year down in Atlanta. And I was right down on Linux, and I just hung out and kicked it. Unlike, TK and, I wasn't married at the time, single, had no kids. So, I'm retired at 33. I'm living in Atlanta. I'm getting it in, for the first year. And I did. And then after a while, man, like TK said, I said, man, I got a lot of time now. I had a little bit of money. Obviously I just retired. I said, but I'm not doing anything useful. I'm 33 years old, and all I'm doing is hanging out. I said, I got to find something productive to do, because you are a robot. You are told when, you get up, you got structure. And as much as all of us as athletes complain about getting told what to do and hard practices and meetings and all that stuff, we still crave structure. Like, we need it. We have to have it. It almost becomes like a drug because you get so used to it. And I craved it, and we all crave it, even though we try to act like we don't. And so I didn't have any. And then after 1 year, I said, I got to do something, productive. So I got into the franchise business. So I owned some Planet Smoothie stores, kind of like Smoothie King and Jamba Juice down in Atlanta. I had a few stores at the time, and I was into that business for like 5 years. And I learned a ton and just about how to manage people. And I had a bunch of employees who were obviously high school kids. But the one thing I learned from football is now you're a coach, and your employees are your players. And you gotta kind of learn how to adapt to them. You gotta learn their personalities. You gotta learn who's gonna be your manager. It's gonna be kind of like your quarterback. So I took a lot of those lessons I learned from football into the business world, and I was able to transition from that. And that's just because of that. I want to do something different. I want to do something completely away from sports and athletics, particularly football. Not that I had a bad taste in my mouth or was resentful. I just wanted to challenge myself. I didn't even know how to even work a cash register. I never done payroll. I never done sales tax. I never did any of that stuff before. So I needed to learn that. And so it was a great experience, but it still didn't give me that oomph or that drive that it didn't really light my fire. It was something to do. Then I started doing media stuff here in Atlanta, Fox Sports, Comcast, doing stuff at UVA. Francis, you remember I was doing the play-by-play stuff, and I enjoyed that. And that got me into football, back into the mode, doing camps with TK, FBU and stuff. And then finally around 2012, you know, my wife at the time was like, man, you need to go coach. And I wanted to get dirty because I just came off of doing the camps at FBU to about 12 or 13. And then I was like, you know what, I'm gonna get into coaching. And the next thing you know, that's when I started working where I am now. So I've been coaching high school football, and other than playing the game, this is probably giving the next closest high than running through a tunnel on Sunday afternoons. Just coaching the kids, making this final transition probably when I was 41 when I started coaching at the high school. But it's given me a lot of life. And the thing I like about the coaching is the preparation. You know, I've had enough wins and losses in my life. They're going to come and go, but the preparation is the thing that really excites me week to week. And obviously seeing these kids, you get them in like 8th grade, and then you go watch them graduate from college and, you know, and go on, a couple of them have now gone on to the pros. So that's the thing that's been really fulfilling for me. And that's when I've been able to take all my lessons from Charles Hovis and George Welsh, rest his soul, and Charles Hovis, Bill Belichick, Bill Parcells, Pete Carroll, you know, George Seifert. I got a chance to be around all these football minds, Al Groh, you know, for a long time. So I've been able to kind of instill a lot of those lessons and values I learned from them and then place it into the kids I'm coaching now. And they have my own little personality. And so, Francis, you know the kid, Andrew Thomas, that got drafted 4th overall from the Giants this year.
Yeah,
he's one of my kids I coach at Pace. You know, wow. He's a Pace Academy kid. Mike Husted, the kicker that just made the team from the Rams, Samuel Sloman.
Yeah, he went there.
That's a kid that I coached in high school. Both of them got drafted this past year. And so, and Sloman was like you, a soccer kid. You know, I begged him to come out his junior year. He came out, kicked, liked it, goes to Miami of Ohio, earns a scholarship, and gets drafted in the 7th round. And now he started for the Rams. That's good. You know, and so in having Andrew Thomas, kid from DeKalb County, you know, and just getting him and watching him grow from 8th grade to Georgia, then being the number 4 pick on the draft overall. You know, that's for me, that's like my high. You know, watching those guys on draft day get drafted, kids you get like in middle school. So make sure you keep an eye on Thomas for me, Francis, when you see him. Yeah, he's a great young man. I just hope New York City ain't too much for him, but he's pretty smart though. Yeah,
that's good stuff. You know, many folks look at your careers and say, man, you guys lived a life. Like you lived a lot of dreams of players that you played with in high school. I mean, you really did, and it's okay. And I told Dwight that, told Terry that about, you know, when all of us played and we competed against each other, we went on to college, like we rooted for each other. Like for those who went on to the NFL, we were like, that's my guy right there. I remember, you know, with Utah playing for San Francisco, when I was working with the Redskins, and we was on the sideline going back and forth. But tell me, during this process of becoming an NFL player and the experience that you guys had, tell us some adversity that you had to overcome to actually keep yourself going. Like, was it at Tennessee? Was it at UVA? Was it a time where you were like, man, can I really do this? You know, give us some of the adversity that you had to go through to get to where you ended up in the NFL.
You know, for me, it was just more like, you know, there's always someone I had to beat out. You know, there's always someone brought in on a scholarship or a guy that was drafted. You know, so, you know, sometimes there's less pressure on that, but it was also, you know, that draft pick or that scholarship guy is always going to get the, you know, benefit of the doubt to be the starter. And so it's just, you know, for me, it was always a competition I was brought in, or the competition that was in. And so it's just, you know, it's that competition that, you know, helps you rise to the top. And so for me, it was, you know, and then halfway through my career in the NFL, my mom got sick. She ended up passing away. And, you know, I didn't tell anybody about it. And I was struggling, you know, and fortunately, Tony Dungy was a coach. And, you know, I missed I think an extra point, you know, and we ended up losing the game. And everyone was calling for my head. And Tony knew what was going on. And you know, Tuesday's that day off, and it's either, you know, if you hear that phone ring, you know, from the facility, you're going, uh-oh, this isn't good.
Get your playbook.
Yeah, right. Right? So, but you know, the phone rang. You know, this is back before cell phones, but you knew that number on caller ID, and I was like, here we go. And you know, it's Tony Dungy, and he said, Michael, you're a kicker. See you at work tomorrow. And that kind of that meant a lot to me, and it showed me that, you know, team had my support, had my back, and went out the very next week and hit a game winner and got us back on track. And that was the year we went to the playoffs for the first time in 20-something years. So you know, there are a lot of good things in overcoming adversity, but, you know, you got to have the right people around you. And you know, like Slade said, just being around these coaches who just, you know, had a lot of good, you know, just good integrity and good ways of doing things that you pick and choose what's going to help you be better. And, you know, I mean, I coach my daughters in soccer. I coach at local high school now, special teams coordinator. And you know, I take the things I learned from Tony Dungy and some of these other coaches, and I use that to weave how I coach people. And so, but you always have adversity, and it's sink or swim. And like I said, you learn more from your failures. So it's okay to fail, but learn that lesson. But, you know, for me, that was kind of the adversity that I experienced.
You know, for me, mine was a little different. You know, for me, I mean, I've never, you know, had an issue, you know, sports where, you know, was never the top guy, you know, baseball, you know, track and football. I mean, you think about it. I mean, ever since I was in Little League and all the way through Bethel and, you know, go to University of Tennessee and excel there, you know, become, you know, All-American, you know, after Chuck Smith and Chris Mims and all those guys, I mean, you know, all the great players. And, you know, then I ended up, you know, getting drafted in the first round, you know, San Francisco 49ers. And really at that time in my life, you know, that's when adversity hit me because, you know, I was expected to come in right away for the San Francisco 49ers. And, you know, Charles Haley had just left and, you know, Tim Harris, who had just got 14 and a half sacks his freshman year, his rookie year. And then I came in, you know, there was a lot of pressure. I mean, they started me right out the gate, you know, and I mean, I didn't live up to the expectations, you know, my rookie year. And what happened was, you know, since I didn't live up to my expectations my rookie year, you know, it put a lot of pressure on me, a lot of adversity in my life because, you know, that off season, you know, I went in, you know, I ended up only getting one sack, you know, my rookie year. And with that happened, it was a lot of pressure, you know, because people say, you know, you was a first round draft pick, you know, you only got one sack. So I came back, you know, the second year and then they got all these different guys, Charles Mann, Ricky Jackson, you know, I mean, all these different defensive linemen, you know, that they brought in, and I never really had the chance to recover. And so for me, that was the adversity. I'm talking about that was the most challenging part, you know, in my life is, you know, when my rookie year, it just didn't live up to the expectations. And that was the first time I ever faced adversity and just being in San Francisco. But, you know, it taught me a lesson. It taught me a lesson, especially life after. And I took that adversity, you know, after my football career was over. You know, I ended up going, you know, to the Bengals and to the Falcons, and then, you know, my career was cut short. But I think what happened was I got branded early, and I will tell any young person, you know, I made a mistake of, you know, got drafted in the first round, and I was driving in the limos, you know, I was, you know, hanging with the females, you know, smoking, drinking, you know, doing all the things that I should have been doing. Should have been lifting weights like I was at UT. I stopped doing it, you know. And then when I got to the NFL, guys, you know, them defensive linemen, you know, them offensive linemen, they could run with you, you know, and right, you know, and so, yeah, exactly. So I didn't take it serious, and so now, you know, when I look at life now afterwards, you know, in my marriage and my career, you know, after football, I mean, that adversity, you know, excelled my life after football. I mean, in my career, I'm like, you know, and I love it. You know, like I said, I've been married 28 years, and you know, I probably retire here in about 10 more years, you know, from what I'm doing. But that part of my life was the toughest, but I overcame the adversity, and it was a challenge, but I could smile and thank God to have an opportunity. I, you know, got a Super Bowl ring. You know, how many people, you know, got a Super Bowl ring? You know, if you think about that. And so I can look at all the bad things, but I look at the positive from it. You know, I look at all the positive things that happened from it, and it grew me to the person that I am now. You know, sitting here, you know, be 50 years old, November 27th.
Slade.
That's crazy to hear that. I mean, that's a great story. And,
Yeah,
you know, I'm just sitting there thinking TK talking about he'll be 50. And I'm thinking back to, I remember we were 8 years old.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
Absolutely.
You know, 80, man, 42 years ago. You know, it's crazy, man. Then we're still sitting here talking, man. That's awesome. But the big thing I had was, I remember this, and obviously, Francis, you being the PA guy, after my fourth year, during my fourth year of my season, 8th game of the year, Al Grove calls me into his office, and he's like, Slade, he said, you know, this is my contract. I'm unrestricted. I'm like, I'm about to get paid. Al Grove calls me in his office, and he said, Slade, he said, Parcells, he wants to just have you play not first and second down anymore. He wants you to just be a third down pass rusher. And I'm like, why? I said, you know, I've been starting since my rookie year. I said, it's my fourth year, my contract year, unrestricted, mind you. I said, so what's the deal? He said, well, you know, Bill thinks you're kind of, you know, we're wearing down a little bit. You know, you're playing every snap. You're playing, you know, you're playing all packages. You're not coming off the field. And I had played a bunch of snaps those prior to 4 years, even on the kick. I was even on the special teams. And so I'm pissed. I'm like irate because all I can think about is this man messing with my money.
Right.
Now he's platooning me to just be a third down guy. I mean, that's what I do when I'm in my 9th or 10th year. I said, I'm in my 4th year, the prime of my career, my unrestricted free agent year. Parcells wants to play these mind games. And so Al was like, Coach Groh, the D coordinator at the time, was like, listen, he's the boss. He's the head coach. This is what he wants to do. So he does this like the week 8 of the season. I'll never forget this. So I come in only on third down. So third down, I'm coming. So you know how it is, man. Coming in on the third down only, like you're a specialist. It's almost like being a 6th man on the bench. Like when you get in, you got to be cooking. Like you got to make something happen. Mm-hmm. And so I get in. I was pissed. So I'm hitting Drew Bledsoe in practice. I'm knocking out Curtis Martin. Like I'm mad at everybody because I'm like, this dude messing with my money. I mean, I was pissed. I ain't speak to nobody. I passed Parcells in the hallway. We wouldn't even speak. He knew I was mad. He didn't care. Parcells. Yeah. This is what he wanted to do. I could never figure out why. And and my agent got involved. He called Bill and you messing with my client. So it was tough. The Globe got involved. The Boston Globe, the Boston Herald. Slade's getting benched. He's the guy. He had a good season, defensive MVP the year before. So the last 8 games of the year, I was just going on third down. I made some things happen. I had a couple good games. I remember actually going up to San Diego, having a big game, and a couple other games I played pretty well in. So I said, okay, if this is going to be my only job, when I get in, I'm going to make something happen because I ain't got no choice. I'm going to go in and make something happen. So I actually had a pretty good second half of the season. We go on to go to the playoffs and go to the Super Bowl. Eventually, we lost to Green Bay, but that's what happened in my unrestricted free agent year. So the big thing for me was, what I did was, and later on, I saw Parcells. He was with the Jets, and I pulled him aside after the game or something. We talked, and I said, Bill, why did you do what you did to me? I guess it was 2 years ago at that time he was with the Jets. He said, listen, I knew I needed you for the playoffs. He said, and the way I looked at it, I needed to motivate you because I needed you to be my guy in the playoff run. He said, if I don't play you and when you get in and you don't do anything, I could say you weren't ready for it anyway. This is when you were fading. You were fading out. You were getting tired. You go in and play well, then I needed to motivate you. He said, so for me, I couldn't lose. It was a win-win situation for me. He said, I needed you for the playoffs. He said, if I put you in, you're going to make plays. Okay, he's motivated. He's doing something. If I put you in on third down and you don't do anything, now you're moping. Now you're feeling sorry for yourself. He said, so for me, I couldn't lose. It was a win-win for me. I needed you for that playoff run. And he didn't tell me that until like maybe 4 or 5 years after it all happened. But I was pissed forever about that situation because I felt like he messed with my money. And eventually I ended up signing back with the Patriots. Everything worked out. Pete Carroll came. But that was like the biggest adversity. And Bill never explained to me and told me why. He didn't have to, why he did what he did. He just kept saying, well, this is what I'm going to do now. I think he gave me the whole company line. I think this is best for the team. And that was the most adversity that I ever faced. I couldn't figure out why. And then later on in life, he told me why and showed me why he did that. It was just him trying to motivate me. And he was in a no-win situation. Either way, he's going to win he's going to win it. So that was like the most adversity. And it's a crazy thing, man, because he really messed with my mind. But that was kind of Parcells' way of finding a certain guy and finding motivating ways to get them going. It's an interesting story, dude. But it happened. I was one of those guys. Yeah.
Man,
that was adversity, big time.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But what we love about all of these stories, which is why we started this, like, is hearing these personal experiences, because these are things that people are dealing with, whether they're playing professional sports or just every day. A boss or a supervisor. I mean, these are lessons that could be taken and used or, to be applied for success in life. So, man, I know Carl appreciates it, but I definitely appreciate it. And the fact that we're going to be coming up on 25 years next year for the Hampton Roads Youth Foundation. You guys were there in the beginning to help us get it going, to really keep that tradition going in terms of, the Hampton Roads area, the state of Virginia in general, but particularly in the area, motivating some of those kids, man. It's just great to see you all and for you guys to come on and share some of your stories so we can share with this broader audience that's watching.
Yeah, it's awesome to see you guys again, man. It's been too long. I think, Slade, last time I saw you was out here at that USC Virginia game.
Yep.
At the Coliseum. And, one thing too, just, Carl, you mentioned before, like seeing guys that we played up, Peninsula District, seeing like TK, like, after the game, you go up and, the game's over and you shake someone's hand or you give them a hug, and seeing Slade and Kirby and all the guys, whether from the PD or from UVA. And it's just, it's that bond that we have. And, doesn't matter how many years goes by, we know where we came from. And it's just always great to see guys and communicate with them. And whenever I get a text from Carl Francis, like, hey man, like, he's like, well, I'm like, yeah, it's just great to hear from people that, we've known forever. And so, I'm stoked. I'm proud to be from, original 804, but 757 and very proud of where I came from and proud of everybody I know and grew up with and people that I played and, bled with and sweated with and gave water to on the sideline when they came off, so.
I think what's interesting, man, is, I'm still working with a lot of the 757 kids, and I'm here listening to you guys, and I just hear the humility in terms of where you are in your life. And when I think about the young guys that I talk to now, even from the 757, I say to myself, I don't know if they're ready to be in this space. Because when you're in the moment, man, you're in the moment. Like, Slade, like, you're playing football, you're trying to win. I'm in this different mind space. Todd, you know how it is. Husted, like you said, they bringing in kickers. And I think about, man, some of the active guys that are in, like, ready to truly understand the moment that they're in until they're really out. When they really can come to grips with saying, man, I struggle with adjusting to the NFL and when I was drafted first round, all these different stories, man. And just like to Vernon's point, just to hear where we are in our life, man, and to be able to get a story like that from Chris, I wouldn't have been able to get that story a year out the league, I wouldn't have been able to get that, maybe from New Husted when we were out in, Hawaii at the rep meetings, but now where we're all in our lives, it's like, I hear it in y'all voice, man, and it's very refreshing to know that, we were part of this community, man, that just had great players way before you guys. And just to know that we can still connect and have a good time, man, is a positive thing, man. So I want to thank you guys for coming on, man, and joining. And I can't say thank you enough. Chris, go ahead.
Carl, can you hear me?
Yes,
Yep.
yeah.
All right, listen, man. I got to get one of them T-shirts for coming on the show.
Yeah,
I know, I want one too.
Dude, I got to get one of them T-shirts you got on, man. That's 757.
Oh, yeah, this thing. You know what, Vernon? Where we get?
Actually, we got Pooh Johnson gave it to us, but it's a guy called Home Turf. Like, I think he left some messages on our Facebook page. It's Home Turf is the group. But yeah, we have to call Pooh Johnson.
We'll call it Pooh Johnson.
Pooh Johnson gifted them to us.
Dude, I want to rep that down here in Atlanta, man.
No,
Yeah,
2X, dog. Send me a 2X.
yeah.
I got you.
Give me a large.
Oh, here we go.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, Lord.
You wearing your little brother shirt.
So the guy
Little brother shirt.
Mike's up, maybe.
Hey, Husted,
What
Mike,
up?
if you want to get in touch with Sloman to come speak or whatever, you're the high school coaching?
Yeah. Well, special teams, but because I'm right up the street, man. So
I'm gonna link you up with Sloman. He's a great kid. You'll love him.
Yeah. And tell him if he ever wants to come down and get some work too, because I work with the kicker from the Seahawks, kicker from the Panthers.
Okay.
Talking about small schools of success, like the second year punter for the Patriots, Jake Bailey.
Oh yeah.
I'd coached him since 9th grade, and the high school I coach. There's 400 kids in a high school.
Oh yeah.
We run the wing T because we have to. But we compete in the playoffs against schools 2,500 students, and we compete and we win. So I'd love to meet him, connect with him, and being a rookie kicker, any way I can be a resource for him as well.
I'll definitely link you. I'll text me. Hey, Francis, can you put us in a group text or whatever so I can get everybody's number? I got TK's.
Yep.
I'll make sure I get Husted's number. All right. Cool.
That's that wing T. That wing T, you can't stop it. But anyway, so C-Bone, V-Lee, I want to tell you guys, man, y'all, I'm so glad you guys connected 25 years ago. You guys making history. This has become a legacy, right? What you guys doing, man. So don't ever forget, man, y'all's bond. I know sometimes in situations, man, y'all have stuff at the last minute. You're trying to work. Nobody sees what happens behind the scenes, right? I know you guys do a lot, man. So, we respect that. We admire that. At the end of the day, anytime, you need me, you can call on me and just let me know anytime. I'm here for you guys. I'm part of it. I'll always be part of it. As long as I'm on this earth, I'll always be part of helping with the 757.
No doubt.
Yeah, definitely too. Both you guys have very busy jobs and you guys are out and about, and the fact that you guys, devote a lot of your free time to taking things back and trying to help everybody from 757, man, much love.
Husted, he said, don't get off the hook because we're gonna send you a call. We're gonna get you at least at a minimum 10 kickers to work with next year.
If they want to go pro, man, they better come to me.
That's what I
like it.
That's 757.
Right.
Hey, TK,
I like
your boy Chuck Smith down here doing his pass rush stuff. You still be coming down?
So check this out, man. He's charging $10,000 for workout.
Wow.
$10,000 a workout with with the big boys, the pros. I mean,
Yeah.
we just came to Tennessee for one day, man. They paid him $2,000 just for 2 hours.
Slade, you slipping, Slade. You slipping.
Yeah, dude. If I'm bringing in a kid to pass rush camp, he's gonna be at 8th grade. I'm trying to recruit him to come to my school. I ain't got time for the NFL guys, man. They hard to track down. I'm trying to win some more state championships.
Yeah, man.
Man, we appreciate you guys, and assuming that this COVID thing next year eases up, we are planning to have a big 25-year reunion. So we definitely want all you guys to come back, because that's gonna be a crazy weekend.
Yeah.
With everybody coming back.
Put me down. I'll be there for sure.
Yeah,
got
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, fellas.
Forget my shirt, Francis.
I got you, boss.
All right, dog.